Well, I think we can take also the time, since some of you, I remember from yesterday, I had to troop out, unfortunately, yesterday, but now I'm back, and now it's a bit more relaxed, I think. So whenever you have questions, I think it would be a good time now to address them. Now we're also discussing the field of mobility, and this is, if I can refer to yesterday, so this is a known unknown. How will we be mobile over the next decades? And we come, of course, from a fossil world, and the road transport, and it still is like a 98% at the moment, is based on fossil energy carriers. Of course, the kerosenes for the aircrafts, and oil product, I mean heavy oil for the ships, for the large ships, and all kinds of diesel and oil products for the road transport. The trains, as it was mentioned right now, of course, if you have electric trains, that's always the best because the efficiency is the highest. But in Germany, we have about 38% of our railroads are not electrified. This is due to the fact that some of the smaller side lines into the valleys, into the mountains, and those who are not so frequently used, they are still all powered by diesel. And it would have been electrified if their business case would have been there. But as I said, 38%, that's quite a big amount of our railroad system is not electrified. And this is indeed a huge realm for fuel cells. Especially, I mean, the whole value chain is very clear for the train operators. They make contracts for like 20 years. So for those who produce the hydrogen, it's a no-brainer in a way, because it's clear that at whatever 5 in the morning, train comes, gets refueled, and is driving back and forth all day. Next morning, same thing. For the next 20 years, there is no risk connected to that. And it's even more so that such refueling stations for the trains, of course, have the benefit they can refuel other mobile systems, such as trucks and of all sizes, and why not even cars. So therefore, it's a nice business case, this kind of gas refueling stations. And generally speaking, we have this big debate from the one hand side, all electric and efficiency first. That still comes from the discussions from the early times of the energy system transformation, when people said, okay, we have to go to green molecules to be energy independent. But now, 20 years later, it's very clear that we as a country will never be energy independent because we have no fossil resources, first of all, but second, we also don't have the resources based on renewables. So we have to always have to import the energy carriers. Right now, it's 70% of our energy and consumption comes in form of molecules from abroad. And so the big question is now, and there are numerous studies, we do studies based on all kinds of consumptions. Are we entering an all-electric world that we can electrify as much as we can in terms of heating and cooling of buildings, of road transport, in the form of battery-powered cars? Or from the other side, we do have a 80% molecular energy system in Germany. I mean, this is probably true here as well. The conversion elements are right. I mean, internal combustion engine, that's a proven technology. It's just the fuel which makes the issues, because we take out the fuel out of the ground and emit the CO2 into the ground. So if we can manage to produce sustainable fuels, by green hydrogen and converting hydrogen with carbon from biomass, for example, to a sustainable fuel, and then we're all set. So we don't have to change anything. We have the supply chains, we have the fueling stations. So, and these are two good arguments from both sides, going all electric because of efficiency reasons, or just replacing the fuels from fossil to sustainable fuels. And somewhere is the crossing point. And politics, of course, has to define the market design and give the right of way for green molecules and support it and give incentive for sustainable fuels. And this is exactly the phase in which we are right now. Heavy debates, so to speak, and because the transport sector in Germany is the sector which is lacking behind the most in terms of CO2 reduction. We have had 163 million tons of emissions in the transport sector in 1990. Last year it was 163 million tons. So it happened to be exact the same value. That's what I want to say. Over the last 30 years, we have had more cars and trucks on the street, and they compensate for the efficiency increase of the internal combustion. So therefore, we have done all the same. But now, till 2030, the transport sector has to reduce its emission by 65%, so 2/3. And of course, everyone's scratching his head now. What we have not done in the last 30 years should be done now in the next 7 years. How should that be done? And of course, there is big hope on battery electric cars, because that seems to be a low-hanging fruit. But if you look at it precisely, it's only a low-hanging fruit in terms of CO2 if the power supply is completely green. If you take the power out of the grid, then you, of course, have the overall CO2 emission of the power which is being injected into the grid. So therefore, it's not done with just replacing internal combustion engine by battery cars. And that's why we're very convinced that we need synthetic fuels for the whole drivetrain. Because, I mean, when I'm on the streets here and see all these millions of cars, sometimes they seem to be on one spot. I mean, this is a true market, and in most of those vehicles, they have another decade, maybe even 2, to go until they really have seen the end of their life. And if we are fast enough to replace it, the fuel by synthetic sustainable fuels, then there's no worries about having such kind of vehicles even longer on the street. So this is just to open the realm of possibilities. But all alternatives to batteries are going through hydrogen as an energy carrier. So therefore, this is certainly a no-brainer to start with green hydrogen and then look out for a high concentrated carbon source, ideally speaking from biomass, and then doing the methanol, the OME, the DME conversion. And the charming element of OME is, which is a diesel replacement, you can inject it into an existing infrastructure. So it's a blend-in fuel. It has the same properties as diesel, and so therefore for a long time you don't need to adjust your internal combustion engine if you feed it with an OME as a source. Yeah, I think this is about what seems to be important to me. Stay technology open. There is no silver bullet. There's no one solution, so we need all solutions for the various transport sectors. The fleet operators, they need a fast refill. They cannot wait until a battery is recharged. And so therefore, the bigger sized luxurious cars, they're heavy. They need a fuel, and smaller cars, they are absolutely fine with batteries. So each segment will have its own vehicle and its own energy carrier. So market will decide. Each of us decide on the next vehicle, on the next fuel, so to speak. So therefore, let the market decide and not whoever, maybe government or who would otherwise be in charge. So thank you again for having me here. Sorry that I had to troop out and my agent kept me busy day and night, but it was very nice to be here. Thank you.